So welcome everyone to our EmpowHER Tribe Book Club discussion. Today we're freaking excited that we have Dave Hollis hopping on today. And really, Dave doesn't need an introduction because I know you all know who he is. But just in case you don't, let me tell you a few things about him. He is the CEO of the Hollis Company, which is all about the belief in that people are made for more. He is the husband to Rachel and the father to 3 boys and a freaking cute daughter named Noah that he does
He's a monster.
Tea parties with. That's why they're cute, right? So we keep them around. And then he hosts the Start Today morning show and podcast, Rise Together. And he was the previous president of distribution for Walt Disney Studios and the author of the book we read in our book club called Get Out of Your Own Way. So welcome, Dave.
Thank you for having me. This is such a surreal thing. Hello, humans watching via Zoom all over the entire, I'm just going to pretend world, universe.
Yeah.
It's nice to see everybody.
I know, we were joking that we're like, probably half of us are in our pajamas on the bottom, like dressed on the top.
That's fine.
Right?
That's fine. You do what you can.
Yeah.
Rachel had an interview with CNN yesterday morning. It was at like 8:40 in the morning, and we were about to go running. And so she has an interview with CNN where she is now wearing totally appropriate to be interviewed on CNN clothing on the top and running shorts and running shoes on the bottom. And no one knew any better. So you know what? You do what you can.
Yes, I love that. I think I saw that in your stories. That's so funny. Well, this book, I have to say, Dave, I've read a lot of personal development books, and this book shared, and sometimes a lot of the same stuff gets recycled, but this one, I found some really like unique perspective from here, and it was really refreshing. So
thank you.
I loved reading it. And in fact, my husband kept stealing it from me. And my mom read it, and she and I were talking about it this morning. So it was a great read. And so we want to hear as much from you as possible in your limited time. So here's a question that I want to start with, and you can take it in any direction that you'd like. But we know, so right now we're all, in this quarantine together. And you talked about, and I can't remember what chapter it was, but you talked about how sometimes at your Rise, Rise events, your keynote is where you discuss like the things that can get in our way. That was a big aha moment for me, was kind of like addressing the things that get in our way when we're goal setting or trying to figure out what we're trying to accomplish, and kind of addressing those things. And so I thought maybe we could address those things today is, how addressing the things that can get in our way as we're all in this together, all in the same boat, trying to, deal with this, this new waters in this new circumstance.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you all read the book. The whole idea that there are a set of stories that we believe that if we stay connected to them, guide our actions on a conscious or subconscious level is an important place to begin. Because here we are in totally uncharted waters. There is no playbook, there is no rule book for how to handle quarantine, virus, living in a house with other human beings that you normally love a ton, but now that it's 14 days in, you are questioning the love. Yeah. There are no rules, right? And so part of where I think, start for any of us is, what are the stories that we are believing about our ability to handle this hard time? What are the stories that we are believing about what it will take, or whether we have what it takes? Because if you believe that this is going to be hard, if you believe that you may not have what it takes, if you believe that there's a time or a place where the wheels are just going to completely come off, then you will be on the search, the hunt for evidence of that hypothesis. If you believe the alternative, that you have been through hard things, and you, of course, because of having been through hard things, can get through hard things, or if you can attach yourself to the belief that in having previously persevered through things that in their challenge created a new, strong version of yourself that just thought differently about what you were able to process, then you'll find evidence of that hypothesis as you look out as well. And so in the book, if you remember in the chapter, if you read this chapter about our adoption journey, right? Our adoption journey ended, yes, with the happy ending of Noah, the like beauty of making it through impossibly hard things. But I can say every single day that I have zero interest in reliving 2016. I am not interested in going through 2016 again, but I am in 2020 sitting in Austin, Texas, working with my wife. I wrote this book. I do this work because of having survived a year that I do not want to relive. And so I can stay connected to how important persevering through hard things has been for me personally in a way that informs how I can, in that perspective, think differently about what it's going to mean in the next 90 days or 120 days to get through what is inevitably going to be hard, because we will be different people on the other side of this crisis. We will be different parents, we will be different partners, we will be different leaders of people, we will be different just people. And I can say with 100% certainty that my having gone through what we did in 2016 reframed how I think about hard things. And what we're going through right now will 100%, whether you like it or not, reframe the way you think about your capacity to do hard things. But it, man, will make it a lot easier to go through these times if you can appreciate what you're going to feel on the other side of it while you're going through it, because it's going to be hard. It is going to be hard. That's one. Two, there was something for me, and I think there is something for you, like the fact that there are, whatever, 54 of you, 52 or 3, whatever it is, however many of you are watching this live and however many more watch this afterwards, the more that you can stay connected to each other in times where we are being forced to stay away from each other physically is going to be wildly more important, because whatever April is feeling or Ashley is feeling or Kelly is feeling or Holly is feeling is going to be the thing that every other person is feeling. But in isolation, we can feel isolated in thinking that we are maybe the only ones processing this experience the way that we are. And so, man, staying connected and being comfortable raising your hand and representing the way that you are feeling on the days when it gets hard, so that someone else can normalize the way that you are experiencing what you are and offer, in your having raised your hand, some solution that maybe worked a little bit for them, so that it may be a thing that you can apply to the thing that you're experiencing. Man, it'll make a humongous difference. I can say, like, and this may be a little more a masculine thing than a feminine thing, but I really struggled with acknowledging the times when I was struggling. And, you know, struggle is universal. Every single one of you, I don't care how strong you are, I don't care how strong I am, we are all going to struggle at some point over the course of the next 90 days, 120 days, 180 days. And when you are struggling, your willingness to own that struggle and represent that struggle will find someone connecting with you in a way that makes you feel less alone in the struggle and offers you a tool to help get through the struggle. Kelly, I don't even know what your original question was, but hey, let's keep moving.
No, but I love it because and you talk about this in one of your chapters, that sometimes sharing the struggle kind of helps you heal through it, you know, being vulnerable. And that's how you connect with others. And you mentioned that.
Well, I would say two things. One, like, struggle is just such a universal thing. And if you, whether it's here interpersonally, you're interested in just connecting in a disconnected world, man, owning your struggle is going to connect you faster than any single thing, because every single person here in some ways is struggling with something. That is not an indictment on any person here. That is a reflection of your humanity. You struggle because you're human, and all of us struggle because we are all human, except for maybe Lindsay. Lindsay, you might be a cyborg. But other than that, I think most people here are right? Most people here are human. And if you're human, you struggle. So that's the first thing. But in my willingness, and by the way, it wasn't like as easy as I'm about to say, but man, I feel so differently on the other side of owning 20 chapters of things that I had carried shame for, or that I struggled with, or that I thought because of them existing in some ways made me less or not enough or less lovable. But in owning them and talking honestly about them, I was able to shape the narrative around them. And there is power in owning your struggle. And so if you can get to a place where you're like, you know what? Yep, this is hard. And here's why it's hard. And this is how I, in owning this struggle, am taking control of it, right? Like, I don't love writing a full chapter about struggling with drinking, but my story of persevering past having previously had an unhealthy relationship with drinking to one where I am in control, it's a point of pride in my life that I would make t-shirts of if I thought someone would buy them. I mean, like, whatever you're struggling through, your ability to talk honestly about it and own the way that you are moving from where you were to where you hope to be, that's rad. There's power in that. And it is something that, one, I know connects me to other people, but two, maybe a light source for someone who isn't as far along in their journey as you currently are. And this world needs light, like it needs anything right now, right?
Yes, yes. And you talk about like, it's so true. It's all about like kind of accepting what is. I had this discussion with my daughter the other day, like, this is our life right now. Let's accept it. And once you accept it, it becomes easier to like adapt. And because you mentioned in the book too, change is like inevitable. It's just, and when we embrace it, then it helps us get out of our own way.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's one of these crazy things, because sometimes when I say what I'm about to say, someone will say, don't minimize how hard it is. Don't try and tell me that it's easy for you, or that it's, and the headline is, no one, literally no one, is opting for us to have to go through this. No one voted coronavirus into office. No one has wished for us having quarantine. And yet here it is. It exists, right? And so in its existing, we have to just make a choice. Are we going to try and find the gifts that may be afforded to us in forcing ourselves to focus on what really matters? Are we going to find the gifts potentially in how these close quarters are forcing us to be closer to the people in our lives, or how we're going to sit and have dinner more regularly, or how we're going to, whatever it might be? It's happening. And so it happening and you're wanting it to happen or liking that it's happening are two totally disconnected things. They're going to happen. And whether it's this next 90 days or 180 days, or every other thing that life ends up throwing your way, the fact that they're happening and you liking it or not liking it are just totally disconnected. It's how you make the most of the things that end up coming into your life. And it doesn't mean that you deserve it. Man, many of us, most of you, have had things happen that you do not deserve. But you deserving them and them existing are two totally different things. The way that you will, in whatever ends up coming out of this window of time that we're going to walk through, assign value and create storytelling around what has happened, that will inform how this experience acts as a springboard from which all good things in your life will come from, or an anchor to which you are dragging yourself through life with for the rest of time. Man, that's easier said than done, because we haven't even got to the hard part of this yet. We haven't lost people that we know. We haven't been in quarantine for longer than 15 days. We're about to go into the hard stuff. Mm-hmm. So it's really easy to say, oh, think of it as a springboard. But either way, what's about to happen is going to happen if we can focus our attention and frame our perspective around what might be in this for the future of how we'll handle hard things and what strength we might derive from things we didn't sign up for. The more prepared we might be to actually go chase things out of this and see it as having been an opportunity we never asked for instead of something that was happening to us.
Right. You quote Tony Robbins, who says, like, the things happen for us, not to us. And I feel like this is happening.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm curious, how have you like, I feel like you and Rachel, your whole message is about being intentional and living, you know, becoming the person you were meant to be. So how have you guys been intentional through this specific time? How are you kind of making your way through it?
Yeah, I mean, through what lens? I mean, it truly, like, you can look at it from our personal relationship, how our intention for an exceptional relationship did not go away when quarantine happened. And so it has required flexibility and fluidity in how we think about the pursuit of each other, right? Like when we were normal, when things were what they were, then going out on a Thursday night or having the kind of opportunity to activate something that felt a little more intentional in how we were pursuing each other in between work, in between the time we spend with our kids, was a thing that we would do. Now we're near each other 24/7, like you probably are with the people in your life. And it's required us to think differently about creating some distance and space from the rest of our humans, actually pursuing each other in a way that looks differently than it did 2 days ago, 2 weeks ago. Our kids, we've got 4 kids. It's like 1,000 kids, right? Us showing up well and intentionally in a world where we are around them at all times has taken on a completely different life form. Last night, we had the most amazing Sunday evening thing that we had never done previously. We required that every person in our family create a minimum 5-page presentation on a topic that they have personal expertise, which really spanned the gamut. And so each of our children, Fort Hollis, gave a presentation called The Power of YouTube, which I don't know, like it's debatable at best if YouTube truly has power. Sawyer Hollis gave a presentation on the 5 things that he can do better than any other person in our family. Jackson Hollis gave a presentation on life after coronavirus. My niece, who, because she's in her 20s, was living here in Austin by herself, and frankly, gives us some help with the kids. She's quarantining in here too. She gave a presentation on the power of puzzles, which truly, I will debate that there is true power in puzzles. Rachel's was a full presentation on the reason why Frozen 1 is better than Frozen 2, which no one truly could debate. And I gave a full presentation on the way that baseball cards broke my heart when the market was flooded and supply and demand went sideways. Bottom line, right? We found a way to, with our family, introduce something that truly never would have existed if not for the fact that we wanted to think of different ways for us to have fun, right? In our business. If you are operating a business, if you work inside of a business or are running a business, this is changing the way that you have to think fundamentally about your business. And you can say, this is the worst because of it forcing our business to think differently, or, oh, I have so much fear because of what this is creating for my business. Or you can think, what might this forced time in changing the way we think about our business create for our business or for you individually in your pursuit of a career because of you having to think in a way that you would have never thought. We are thinking in real time with 60 people through Zoom, having to try and connect and maintain our culture in not in-person meetings. It has changed the way we're thinking about it, but man, it's affording us some gifts in how we're thinking about creating value or impact for the audience. We started today this thing called Next 90 Days Challenge, right? It's not a thing that was on the schedule. There was not any plan for us to do any kind of community activation, but we had to ask better questions around this time. What do people in our community need? What do they have? They need more community. They need some accountability. They need some tools to help them get through the next 90 days. What don't they have? They don't have a ton of money. Okay, let's create a free 90-day community activation and see if we can't pour into people where they are, right? I don't know what your version of that is, but there are opportunities that are being created by this thing happening in our lives, if we can see it that way. And then it just comes down to how creative can you be? What questions could you potentially ask, or what things did you say you would never do? I never thought I would give a presentation about how baseball cards broke my heart when the supply and demand market went sideways. And yet here I was really trying to teach a lesson to my kids about what, the world, what could happen in the world. And so I think our business truly, as much as not being able to have live events or thinking differently about the spending ability of customers, is of course a thing we have to be conscientious of. I feel very confident that our business will be stronger on the other side of this because of the way that we're having to think differently about what it means to have a virtual workforce, what it means to create digital experiences, how we think about community engagement when isolation is a thing that just exists everywhere.
Right. Yeah. And your book talks a lot about relationships. It was really great because it made me ask a lot of questions to myself about different relationships, not just my spouse, but family relationships, friendships. It was so great for kind of asking yourself those eye-opening questions. So we have time for probably one more question. And this last week I was interviewed, and this was one of the questions that was asked to me, and it kind of threw me off. And I'm totally going to do it to you.
Let's go. I'm here for it.
So if you found out, Dave, you were going to die in the next 5 minutes.
Oh, no.
Okay, that's probably bad timing, but what would be the message that you would want to leave with the world?
Well, I mean, man, I've been talking about this darn tattoo on my arm since I made this big old leap from what I knew to what I needed. The idea that
hold it up so everyone can see it.
There's the tattoo. It says a ship in harbor is safe, but that's not what ships were built for. I would encourage anyone who in any way associates security or safety or the absence of failure as the thing that they ought to reach for, that they are 100% entitled to clinging to safety and security. They are 100% entitled to doing things that keep them inside of their comfort zone. That is completely fine. But as you decide to do it, you are trading off the opportunity to grow with the interest in your comfort. And if you decide to cling to comfort at the expense of growth, again, I make no judgment. You are entitled to do so, but you are deciding to leave growth out of the picture for yourself. And that will also guarantee that fulfillment at its truest level is not a possibility in your life. Because the only way that you can truly be fulfilled is if you are in a posture of growth. And the only way that you can actually grow is if you push yourself away from the safe harbor into the choppy waters where growth can come. So I want to encourage, truly, if there's a legacy that I hope to leave, and I believe that I am writing the legacy of my lifetime from the last 2 years on. I had a very, very long career. It was great. And when I die, not 5 minutes from now, Kelly, bite your tongue, but 40 years from now, the things that people will talk about 40 years from now will have nothing to do with what I did for the first 25 years of my career. It'll be the last 45 years of my career that exclusively people talk about. And the only reason why that legacy will exist is because I left something that I was unbelievably comfortable with, that checked every box in traditional what people should reach for in terms of title or in terms of security or in terms of knowns, status, whatever it might be, for the opportunity to have impact in less conventional ways. And guess what? It is choppy out on these seas. I am uncomfortable on an almost every minute basis. And it's like the place where I am fulfilled. It doesn't make it easy. I've had to, get a ton of my coping mechanisms in check because I want to do this work well for a long, long time. But the only way that I can truly be fulfilled and truly have the kind of impact that I know I can have is if I leave something that I am comfortable for the pursuit of the opportunity to grow. And I'd like for people to do that too. I want to say one more thing, Kelly, because I don't see a single male face on this entire screen. I guess with a name like this, how could you possibly get another man in here? But I want to say this because I have said this to the women's conferences that we throw whenever I'm in a large group of almost exclusively women. I think it's important to say this. Rachel Hollis gets this question a lot, and I do not ever, ever Dave, ever? I don't ever get this question. Oh, right. Well, Ashley's husband's listening, but you know what? He's allowed to listen to this. I think it's important for anyone to hear this. Rachel gets the question of what this will do to my kids. What will this do to your kids? What will this do to your kids? What will having ambition or pursuing your dream or showing up in a way that fully unlocks the potential of your life do to your children? In a way that I, Dave Hollis, human being who happens to be a man, do not get. I don't get this question, in part because of whatever, patriarchy, gender roles, the history of time. For whatever reason, I don't get the question. Rachel gets the question. This question makes my blood boil. And so I just would like to, for anyone here who in any way needs to hear this, I want to tell you that, one, if I get a question that Rachel doesn't get, or if Rachel gets a question that I don't get, it's not a question that should be asked. So if Ashley, if your husband doesn't get that question and you do get that question, that is not a question that should be asked, number one. Number two, anyone who's asking the question from my perspective is asking it in the wrong tone of voice. The question is, what will this do to my children, right? Because the question, when it's asked that way to Rachel, is asked in a way that suggests that you couldn't possibly be both, that you couldn't possibly be both a woman who has dreams, a woman who has ambition, a woman who goes and chases things, and a good mom, which is, of course, absurd and ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. Amen.
But the reason why it needs to be asked in a different way is that I can attest, as the father of 1,000 kids, or 4 kids, I have 3 boys, and these 3 boys will not one time in their entire life question whether a woman can write back-to-back #1 New York Times best-selling books, lead a boardroom, have a line of product at Target, fill 10,000 people stadiums, or anything else that she decides to do, because they, in their mother, have someone modeling what it means to fully unleash their potential and gifts on the world. And I have a daughter. Though she is a 3-year-old monster right now, she will never, ever, hopefully, have to read a book that my wife wrote called Girl Stop Apologizing, because she has not one time watched my wife model what it is like to apologize for being who you are and living out your mission in this world. And so I want to ask you, the next time that you feel like, and maybe because everyone here is already empowering her, like maybe you don't already feel this, but if ever, ever, ever you get this question, whether it's being asked by some imaginary friend, whether it's being asked by another mom at PTA, whether it's being asked by your mother-in-law or some voice in your head, I want you to ask, what will this do to my children, through the lens of what it might do to them to watch you fully stand in who you were placed on this planet to be. Because what it will do to them is forever change the way that they believe that they can also grow into human beings that either support women being amazing or become women who are. I will get off my soapbox now.
Oh, I liked that soapbox. I got chills. That was a good message, because it's when we grow, then we can impact others, and we can, when we're fulfilled, then we can fill others, including our children, and we can show them, you know, how, like what it looks like to be living your purpose. And you've done that so well in this book, and I love that this book is about growth, and it's about your kind of your skeptical, you know, at first view of like, I don't know how I feel about this whole growth thing. And that's why it had such a fresh perspective. And I think it's such a great book for especially people who maybe never read a personal development book or a self-help book. This is such a great read for anyone who's new to personal development. So thank you so much, Dave. Such a great message. Thanks for your time. And thank you everyone for hopping on and sharing your time with us. And we'll see you guys next month. Bye.
Bye, guys. Thank you.